Will we ever get to the bottom of the IRS scandal? Will we ever find Lois Lerner's missing emails? And should conservative groups be concerned about being audited in the future? Hi, I'm Genevieve Wood of the Daily Signal, and here to talk about all of that are two very experienced folks in this area, attorney Cleta Mitchell and Heritage Foundation legal expert Hans von Spakovsky. Thank you both very much for talking with us.
Sure.
Let me start with you, Cleta. You've been very involved with this. You've represented a number of groups who were audited. Why should people be concerned about this?
Well, I think people should be, and I think they are concerned about it because this hits to the heart of every American in that people know that the IRS, they've had suspicions about the IRS, and this just confirms that the IRS has a political bias. And that's pretty frightening because the IRS reaches every American.
Now, back when all this broke, shortly thereafter, President Obama appointed a new IRS commissioner, Mr. Koskinen. But the Wall Street Journal wrote this morning, look, he's been on the job for 9 months, and it's time to acknowledge that it's past time to admit he's part of the problem, not the answer. He's been stonewalling in Congress. How would you rate his performance?
F. I give him a complete F. I think he's been an inside Washington bureaucrat for his whole career. And I think that he's completely tone deaf insofar as what really has happened. He has allowed his staff to brief him on things. I doubt that he knows anything firsthand about what happened with the missing emails. We don't even know how far down it goes in terms of the preparation that he receives to testify. So he testifies to things that somebody's told him, which is something somebody told them, which is something somebody else told them. So he's really not been forthcoming, and I think he should resign.
Well, and he's actually, said things that other agencies have completely disagreed with.
Yes, and other people have disagreed with that have subsequently been proven to be false. So I don't think you can believe anything that he says. I certainly don't.
Hans, let me ask you on that. The Justice Department's also been involved in this, but what is
supposedly
what has primarily been their role, and what is supposed to be their role?
Well, look, in May of 2013, when all this first came out, Eric Holder said, I'm going to launch a criminal investigation because he said what had happened was outrageous. Well, a year later, we have many clues that, in fact, no serious criminal investigation has been conducted. I mean, one of the most obvious was, and something Cleta can tell you, is, look, she represents dozens of the organizations that were targeted by the IRS. For the first year of their supposed criminal investigation, they didn't talk to the victims. They didn't interview.
And I'll add something to that because Catherine Engelbrecht from True the Vote said that she would be, when they finally got around to saying, can we meet with her? She said, yes, but I won't meet with the Civil Rights Division because they have actually been very hostile to my organization. So when I told the DOJ investigators and the FBI that, I said, she'll meet with you, but not with them. And they said, well, you can't tell us who will meet with us. And I said, well, let's not forget, she's a victim here.
Right.
If she were a rape victim and said, I'd want a female to interview me, you would say, fine. I said, she is a victim here, and you are not going to meet with her and interview her because of your internal pride that it has to be done the way you want it done. That doesn't seem to me like they're very interested in getting to the bottom.
And this is an important point, Genevieve, because look, this type of public corruption, look, I worked at the Justice Department, all right, and I know this because I was there. This kind of public corruption is usually investigated by the Public Integrity Section of the Criminal Division. That's their job. Instead, what did Holder do? He put the Civil Rights Division in charge of this investigation, and he put as the lead lawyer, a lawyer who not only has no experience in doing this kind of investigation, but who is a very big donor to the Barack Obama campaign. The reason for that clearly was because, I can tell you, the most left-wing radical lawyers are all in the Civil Rights Division. This is a way of saying, oh yes, we're investigating it, but keeping a lid on it and making sure that nothing really comes out.
Well, and the Wall Street Journal reported this morning that in the Public Integrity Unit, however, the person there had worked with Lois Lerner back in 2010 on this whole issue.
Right. When they were looking at, Lois Lerner was seeking them out, and they were working together to try to figure out if there was a way to bring criminal charges against these organizations for engaging in protected First Amendment activity. So unless there is a special prosecutor that starts from scratch and has access to all of the information, all the data, all the files, everything, all the interviews, we're not going to get to the bottom of it because the IRS is stonewalling and the Justice Department is complicit in that stonewalling.
All right, Fleeta, thank you.
Thank you.
Hans, thank you very
Sure.
much. We will continue to follow the IRS scandal, this story on a day-by-day basis, and you can follow it as well by going to dailysignal.com.